So, cake is out of the oven. So you can see it is a little darker on the edge, so I was concerned that the middle wasn't baking. So I had my oven rack a little tall, and so the top was definitely cooking, but the middle wasn't so much. And so what I did was I turned the oven off, cracked the door, and just let this sit in there for a couple extra minutes. So my cake was in the oven for probably 50 to 55 minutes, which is within the time frame. And so I'm feeling it. So a good sign is that it's bouncing back. So if your cake were underdone, you would put your finger in and the indent would still be there. Also, another good sign is right here. The cake has started to pull away from the cake pan, which is exactly what you want. So the goal here is to let it kind of sit and come to kind of room temperature, or at least enough to touch it. And while we're waiting for this, we're going to start making our icing and our glaze. Alright, so I'm going to move this off to the side. Slip that off there. And I'm first going to make my sugar syrup, which is just, again, lemon juice and sugar. I'm just going to microwave it for a couple of minutes, or probably a minute at a time, until it starts to bubble a little bit, and then I'll be good for simple syrup. And while that's happening, I'm going to start with my frosting. So I'm going to do 1 stick of butter, and then I'm just going to risk it and go all in and do 1 stick of cream cheese. Because I like a lot of cream cheese and a heavy cream cheese flavor. I'm also not going to use all of this frosting on this cake. So it shouldn't be too bad. So I don't think I'm going to use all this frosting on this cake. Who knows? I did not wash my bowl, nor do I have any extra stand mixer bowl, so I'm going to do this one by hand. Alright, so I'm just going to whip it till nice and fluffy. Microwave went off, which means that my simple syrup should be done. Alright, and I heated this for 2 minutes. So I put it in for a minute, took it out just before, stirred it, put it back in for another minute. This is very hot, so hopefully you can see the steam coming off of that. But it's not boiling, but all my sugar has dissolved. I don't want this to be super icky, sticky, because I want it to go into the cake and drip nicely into the cake. So I'm just going to let this cool back down to room temperature. Gonna feel my cake here still really warm. And I'm gonna go back to whipping up my butter and cream cheese. It would seem the computer does not want to play any more music. It's just gonna freeze. So I'm gonna grab a spatula and scrape down my bowl. So this looks about doubled in size from what I started with, which is what you want. Which means I'm gonna start adding my powdered sugar. But before I do that, I'm going to actually turn my cake out. So I'm just gonna clear some space here. Give myself lots of room. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just tilt, if I can, I'm just going to tilt the cake pan to kind of help the cake from the bottom release. I'm not sure how the bottom is released, so I'm just going to turn it on its side and just kind of rotate it in hopes that the cake has released all the way down. So this is kind of like the moment you sit and pray. Alright, it looks like that is released, at least from what I can see from the top, which means it's time to flip. So how I flip is I put the tray on top, one hand on the top, one hand underneath. Hard thing is trying to get your Alright, there we go. Just had to jiggle it. One on top, one underneath. And 1, 2, 3. And here's when you kind of bang on the top. And we pray. I'm so excited. Oh my god. So look at my pan. That came out almost like as clean as I'm ever gonna get it. Hell yes. So I'm a little excited. Had a bit of breakage on the bottom there when I was trying to turn it out, but no one's gonna see the bottom. Oh my gosh. So it's definitely still very warm. But it is very spongy. So if you can see that texture, a little bit of cracking. But I am super happy with that. I'm going to let it cool more, then I'm going to put simple syrup on. So off to the side you go. So a little bit of breakage there. Not super concerned about that. No one's going to see the bottom. Just wipe away the evidence. Alright. Time to start adding my powdered sugar. I'm going to start with the rest of this bag. It's probably like 2 cups worth. This is not going to be enough, I know. So I'm just going to add the rest of this. Give it a bit of a mix so that I don't like cover myself completely in powdered sugar. low speed, just mix that in. And I'm not super concerned about over powder sugaring it because I am going to add lemon juice, and I can add milk or water to thin it out if I need to. So I'm going to add probably the same amount as the first batch. So that's about a third of the bag. Low speed, back in we go. Okay, so I actually really like this thickness, but I know I'm going to add lemon juice, which means I can't keep it this thick. I have to make it thicker, so that way when I add my lemon juice, it doesn't thin out too much. So to me, this is a good thickness that I want, so it's not going to like drip down the sides of my cake. So I'm going to add another couple, probably another cup or so of powdered sugar, just to make it thicker than this. That way when I add my lemon juice, it's not going to be too thin. So I'm down to about half a bag or so. That's really thick, and it's hard. It's definitely harder to move my mixer through, so I'm going to add in probably a tablespoon or so of lemon juice. And I'm going to kick this to high to add a lot of air and make it really light and fluffy. Texture check. So one, tilting the bowl, it is moving a little bit, but not too much. So one thing I learned from watching just different Food Network shows is that when you are using icing, you want to actually stir it after whipping all that air into it, because you don't want air bubbles in your frosting when you go to pipe it or frost it. Also, I love how they have Home in the acoustic from Beauty and the Beast, also the Broadway song. Just gives Belle, again, more character. Like, I mean, I know technically the animations are for kids, but they don't have chances really to develop the characters like the Broadway versions do. So this song, Home, is she basically just got kidnapped, and she's just like, is this now my home? Wonder what kind of monster would do this, all that stuff. Alright, so my cake is still warm, which is good, because now we're going to soak it in simple syrup. So there's two ways to do this, really, but both ways are accurate. You can either poke holes in it and spoon it on top, or paintbrush it on top. You can also pour liquid back into the Bundt pan, and then put the cake back into the Bundt pan, and then pour liquid on top. I'm not going to do that because I'm afraid I'm going to break the cake. It is a very delicate cake that I have. In which case, I am going to poke holes using my handy-dandy little poker here, and I'm going to just spoon it on top or paintbrush it on top. I'm not going to go too far down. I'm probably doing like a centimeter or so, and I'm focusing right now on the grooves. That's where a lot of the mixture is going to want to navigate anyway, so I'm just going to help it along. And you don't technically have to poke your cake, but I think it just helps get everything in. Sorry if my face is now in the shot. So the positive side is, I was afraid that the top wasn't going to bake because I had the cake pan too far up in the oven, but it looks like it's all nice and baked all the way through. So I'm just going to poke the middle. And yeah, I'm just kind of stabbing the heck out of this thing. You don't want to go too crazy and like break off anything, but you definitely want lots of holes. And I can feel there's texture difference here, so when I stab it here, there's a bit of a crust, and when I stab it up here, it is very light and fluffy. So my cake is, you know, a little overbaked, probably because I didn't have the, I had the cake pan too high, again, in the oven. I should have lowered my rack. But I'm overall really happy with this. This is the first time for me using a Bundt pan. This is the first time for me making this cake. I honestly, like, I'm sure like Paul and Mary would tear it apart, but I am loving it. Also nice is that the simple syrup will help soften whatever sins you have in this cake. And you want to use all your simple syrup, so you're looking at about a half a cup to a cup of liquid. If it starts getting really soggy though, then stop, but it shouldn't. Alright, and I'm going to use a paintbrush. It's actually a pastry brush. So I'm going to use a pastry brush because to me spoons just go too quickly. Like they pour liquid too quickly. So just start from the top and let it work its way down. So it is running a little bit too fast on the cake, so not to prevent that, but to help mitigate that, I would just put a cake pan underneath so you're catching all that extra liquid if you're worried about it being too juicy. That's why I like paintbrushes, but you can get just a quality paintbrush from like Home Depot or something, because it's not gonna, it helps distribute it more evenly than like a spoon would, because I can like really paint the sides. So fun fact, I think this might be accurate, pretty sure it's what I read. So back in the 90s, they had they they had Beauty and the Beast, and they had their first African American belle, which is super awesome. Being, as you can tell, I'm black. So they actually created the song "Home" really just for her, to really showcase her local talent, which, like, that is, a good creator. You get someone who is really great for the role, and then you even better tailor it to fit them and to really showcase what they can do. Like, that's super, I really appreciate that they did that. Because, yeah, my brain is saying Toni Braxton, but I feel like that's the wrong person who was Belle. But maybe I'm right. But that's just super cool that Disney, was like, you are really great, but we want to highlight you even more. So that to me is like the sign of a really great, like, creative team. Alright, this is looking real juicy, and I'm only about halfway. So I'm going to try to start going to the middle here. Really starting to paint it. And what I can do is I can let it all soak in and then do a second coat later. If you're afraid it's going to be too juicy, then feel free to stop. Right now I know it's not soaking into the cake, it's just on the outside. So that's why I'm going to keep going. Because I know that this cake can hold a lot. I'm also not seeing it pour out the bottom either, which is a good sign. So that's why the cake should be kind of lukewarm. If it's too hot, it'll all run to the bottom. If it's too cold, it'll just take forever to get into the cake. Which is why a lot of people go with a method of pouring liquid into the bottom of the Bundt pan, and then they just put the cake back into the Bundt pan, and that way it has time to soak all the way through. I'm actually going to turn this around just because I know I'm probably missing a lot on the back side here. So I'm just going to give myself a better angle of the cake. And actually, while I'm doing this, I'm going to put the frosting in the fridge because I know it's going to get warm, as my kitchen is like 100 degrees. So I like that consistency it's at, so I'm just going to try to keep it there as long as possible. If it gets a little too hard, that's better than if it gets too soft. Too soft, it's hard to save. You just have to add more powdered sugar, which then makes your icing really, really sweet. Reminder again, the glaze or the frosting is optional. So I chose a frosting versus a glaze. So this simple syrup is kind of not necessary, but it's to make the cake super, super moist and really delicious. But the extra step of making a frosting or a glaze is just an extra step. So I chose to make a frosting because I really like cream cheese with my lemon items. The recipe actually called for just powdered sugar, lemon juice, and milk to make like a pouring glaze. Which would look really great on this cake, honestly. And so while I'm thinking about this, or decorating this first very slowly, I'm going to think how I'm going to decorate it. I'm probably just going to pour, or not pour, but just pipe into the swirls my cream cheese icing. Just really highlight those swirls. I'm going to focus on the bottom of my cake as well, because this is where it got a little crusty, a little dried out from over baking. So, save my sins here, and I'm just going to patch it up. And that's one thing I love about baking. It is, a science, and you have to be pretty precise. But you can also, there's a lot of ways to save baked goods. And also, the odds of people knowing what it should taste like, like, you can get away with a lot of stuff. Alright, I am nearly there. I'm down to my last couple of tablespoons. Just going to go back to the middle. Cake has that weird, like, squishy sound now. But I know it's not full because it's dripping down the sides and it's still soaking in, which is the good sign. If you were to put this on and it didn't soak in at all, and it just ran all the way through without ever stopping, that means your cake is basically overfilled. So don't mistake you putting on more liquid by using my brush and it running down and not soaking in versus it being too full. So my cake isn't too full, it's just because I'm pushing more liquid on top of it, it's going to run down faster. So yeah, this cake is looking delicious. I'm very happy with this result. Alright, last brushfuls. And again, focus on that outer, just this outer side here, just because it's a little crusty. Boom. And at this point, you could stop your cake. Like, this looks great. You could probably do just a little bit, a light dusting of powdered sugar just to really highlight the cake. But this is basically all you need as for this cake. So I'm going to let this cool to room temperature, and then I'm going to pipe on my frosting. So I will be right back. Okay, so my cake has been on the counter for about an hour, so it's time to decorate it. I am out of piping bags, so I'm just going to use a Ziploc bag. You don't have to pipe it. This is totally, again, an optional step. So what I do is just give yourself an opening, a big opening. And then just pop your spatula in and then use the side to scrape it off. I don't think I'm going to need all this icing, but I'm just going to pipe it in and put it in the bag anyway. And it's easy storage. Mostly easy storage. And then you want to move all of it to one side, so I'm going to choose this side. So I have a lot of icing, I'm not going to use all of it. And I'm just going to cut a small tip off, so you can always add more. And I'm just going to go follow the grooves. And if you have a turnstile, you could use like a cake turnstile, like a Lazy Susan. I'm just going to keep it on the platter here. So you'll notice I'm holding it a bit above the cake. Just gives it a fuller look. So I'm not really pressing my bag to the cake. I'm holding it just above and letting the icing just fall into the groove there.
Your feet are made to bend. Flex, move, and feel. Zero shapes let them do that. naturally. So you can really feel the ground. You can see how much movement my foot can get. Zero shoes, like your foot, start with the sole. Our patented Feel True soles, like your feet, be feet. Your toes can spread. They're flexible enough for natural movement. Plus, they give you protection and natural comfort. And they're durable enough to have a 5,000.
Try and skip the ad there. And last one. So, as you can see, I made way too much icing. So I would probably half it if I were making this again. So half a stick of butter and half a stick of cream cheese. But also now I have plenty to kind of top off if I want any more. So yeah, so there is my cake. I'm gonna set this down. So this is the finished product. I'd say not bad looking. Again, you could always finish it off with a dusting of powdered sugar, or even like lemon zest, like a powdered sugar and lemon zest. I'm going to leave it just like this, so I'm going to cut myself a slice. So I'm going to pop the camera back up. Alright. So one thing I would do different is probably put this on a cake board, just like a cardboard cutout, so that way it keeps the cake a little more together. But looks like it's, come on, I'm trying to wiggle my knife under there. So hopefully you guys can see that, a lovely slice of cake there. So nice and spongy, just a tad on the warm side, like just like a couple degrees off of room temperature, which is perfect for me. And I'm going to give myself a nice big dollop of the extra cream, because I have so much. So this could be something if you're serving it, just offering dollops of cream on the side. And I'm going to give it a taste. Do one without all the extra cream and one with. So good. It is light and moist and lemony and delicious. I'm super happy, so one with the icing. Not too sweet. It actually could use more lemon, shockingly enough. Like, it's not like a powerhouse for lemon. So even offering more lemon drizzle on the side, perfect. My face right now, it's so delicious. Alright, let me put this down. I'm just gonna So thanks so much for watching this video. Hope you guys bake along with me and make this lemon bundt cake. If you have any suggestions what you want to see me bake through, just let me know in the comments. And again, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys later.